Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast, This Week in America. It's always a pleasure to welcome acclaimed poet Elizabeth Clayton back to This Week in America. She's been called brilliant, artistic, contemplative, inspiring, and vibrant, and all the while maintaining her humility. Hinterland Rose is a collection of her poems, primarily those written in 2020. The verses of the work are connected together as prefaced by relevant attending remarks of the discussion of the conscious mind, the cognitive self generally as depicted in world literature. This discussion concerns man's living together and the ensuing problems that come to the fore, especially in special times. Elizabeth is a retired college and university professor in fields of psychology and literature. Since retirement, she has written almost daily and has produced 23 works, primarily poetry. She's received numerous commendations, including membership in Sigma Kappa Delta, nominations for the Eric Hoffer Award, representation at numerous world book fairs. In addition, she has received several U.S. Review recommendations, also received several Golden Seal of Excellence Awards by her publisher. Now, her first book was I, Elizabeth, which dealt with her struggles with bipolar illness, and her most recent work was published in early 2019, a review of poetry in the fable myth of the white hart, Jason's Pause. She now lives in her country home near Jackson, Mississippi, and delighted to welcome back Elizabeth Clayton, author of Hinterland Rose. Elizabeth, always a pleasure. Welcome back to the program. It's great to have you back with us.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to it, and a little bit with anticipation that might be a little bit on the nervous side. I'm just afraid that I might not make clear everything that I want to say, but I'm going to depend on you.
Well, we will get through this, and I'm looking forward to this, and I'm anxious to get your thoughts on this book. This is such a fascinating collection that you've put together, and I want to start with the title and the cover. How did you come up with the title Hinterland Rose?
Well, Hinterland is spelled with a T, Hinterland. It's a German word that was originally spelled with a D, but the Germans didn't like the time it took to make the D or the sound, and so they changed it to Hinterland, but it means the windows behind. It has to do with something covered partially, dark, not well seen, ominous perhaps, and we all have that. It has to do with the unconscious mind. And we have used the metaphor or the symbol of the swamp, the bog, the Limberlost is a more poetic word. And this comes from a 13,000 swamp land in northern Indiana that was for a long time not drained. And it was you couldn't go in there. It was dangerous and it was not pretty. But it has been drained and now it's made into a beautiful floral. It's a beautiful place now. And so Hinterland Rose, to me, means that we have to struggle with ourselves to come out of rose.
Well, it's interesting, and the cover is so well done. It's a beautiful color. The book is laid out beautifully as well. You say in the book, the rose is conceived in darkness to open full in life's brilliance. Talk about that, because I've read that 3, 4, 5 times, and it really resonates. It's so thought-provoking.
Well, the rose is the queen of the flowers, and flowers indicate truth and beauty in every way. And it doesn't matter what our beginnings. We're conceived inside our mother's body in the dark, but we emerge as a beautiful little animal, little creature that grows into something even more beautiful. And so it doesn't matter in life how hard it is in places. Indeed, we have to go through those places to become the rose that we become.
Hinterland Rose by Elizabeth Clayton, the book we're talking about on the program today. You'll find the book at Amazon, the usual places. Go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you'll be able to link on to Amazon, get information on this and so many other books that Elizabeth has written that we've talked about, probably many of them right here on This Week in America.
Yes, uh-huh.
I mentioned in the beginning, you would talk about cognitive self, and you talk about cognitive development. That's so fascinating. Tell me a little bit about what exactly is cognitive development.
Well, cognitive development has to do with thought development. When man was in his firstness, he was not as developed as he is now. And so over the eons and many, many centuries and thousands of years, man has become more and more and more in the cognitive area, and perhaps a little bit less in the physical, in the physical body, in that we don't depend on our bodies for gaining food and for fighting so much and keeping territory and all that kind of thing. And it's like a lot of things. When you make a great achievement in one area, you might forget to look to the side to what you're leaving behind. And so what we have done is found these closed windows in man's mind. And we have tried to explore them and see what's there. And we have found many answers to problems in life's situations. And we think that we have the answers. We just don't have them, and we're left without anything. We don't have the myth. We don't have the supremacy of God. When the new Renaissance came in, man was made the center of the universe, not God. And so when we figure out with our cognitive brilliance everything, and it turns out not to be right, we have no respite. We have nowhere to go. And so our people now, the reason I address it to our people now, is that we are in the middle of ennui, which the French use to express nothingness.
What has been the result of attention away? And you touched on that, away from God and nature, and emphasis over the years, machines and all they bring into
the
our
Industrial
lives.
Revolution.
Yeah.
The result has been less attention. We have a feigned, a made up, a play-like attention to each other. Have a good day, all this kind of thing. When we really just kill the drop of a hat. We don't pay attention anymore. You can't have a conversation anymore because people don't listen to what you say.
Exactly.
They may answer with an answer that has nothing to do with the question you ask. We don't pay attention to people's feelings. We don't do things for people. We don't offer things to people. We're putting more away from the other person rather than going toward him. What we need is redemption. We need to get back what we have lost. And that is our love for our fellow man. Not a feigned love, not written in law.
You talk about
but
that
real love.
Yeah, that sort of
Brotherly love.
artificial sentiment that most of us engage in. We ask somebody, and it's sort of like going through the motions. How's your day? No matter what they say, we're going to say fine and not pay any attention to it and go about our daily business. Can we really experience true happiness, peace, have that true feeling of contentment with the state of mind that we're in now, which is this artificial sentiment?
I don't think so. We have more people being treated for depression now. We have more antidepressant drugs being manufactured or developed, and they don't do any good except make you a little bit sleepy. They do some good. Some of them do a little good for some people. But we have people all over the psychiatrist couches, and they're not doing any good. What we need to do is say, look, fella, fess up. What is it that's important to you? And he probably will say, well, not very much. What's going to happen to our culture if we die of apathy? Not if another country comes in on us, but if we just give up and say, I really just don't care. We like three things. We like noise, loudness, we like motion, a lot of it, and we like bright, discolored colors. And if you can have those three things together, we're just as happy as we think we're happy.
That's the key.
But when it's over with, we want more. We have to have continual sensual stimulation. And Jonathan Swift said, when he wrote his piece, The Gulliver's Travels, he says, when you run out of enjoyment of the real sources of enjoyment, you go to perversion. And our country has gone definitely in that direction.
Well, you talk about we're all in a hurry, and we've talked about this on other programs. And if I recall, you've got a garden, you take a lot of pride in what you do, in the beauty and being outdoors and in nature. Are we going through life so fast, in such a hurry? Everything we do is in a hurry. We're really missing a lot of what life's about.
Yeah, where is the fire?
Yes. Are we missing a lot of what life is about?
We're missing it all. That's the reason we're so apathetic. We don't have anything that really gives us joy. That's the reason we have to have something that's titillating, that's really, really weird, obtuse, berserk, just berserk almost, to give us a little rise. Because the true things, the true virtues that man used to hold in esteem have been put aside. Because we figured out other ways like tapping on the phone all day long, or playing with the computer all night, or going to a race where several cars pile up, or whatever it is. But when it's over with, we have a letdown and we don't feel any satisfaction at all.
Yeah, almost is that all there is feeling that you have when it's over with. We get that.
That song came out a long time ago. Is that all there is to that?
And
that was a cry. That was a statement. Your lyrics to your songs very often are very telling.
Well, yes, some artist came up with that, and then you have that, you sense that every year at the end of December. We have this build-up for the holidays and this wonderful, marvelous time of the year, and then come, January 1st, and it's like, wow, that went by quickly, and, we've got 11...
It goes by too quickly. I had a girlfriend once, and I said, do you know it's only 10 days to Christmas? And she said, now this has got to stop. I said, yes, it has. But we just want to get over with it because it's tied, really, Rick, it's tied to something very mercenary. It's tied to money and acquiring.
Yes, and we seem to be willing, maybe unwilling accomplices to this because we jump right in and all of us sort of adapt that lifestyle. Should we have more balance in our lives? There's progress. I mean, every day we're going through updates on electronic equipment that we have making supposedly our lives easier. There's always change. Are we missing out on balance? Do we need more balance in our lives?
Oh, yes. That is the thesis of the book that I have just finished the manuscript for.
Ooh,
we have to have balance because life is a paradox. Life is a paradox. Pathos is sweet sorrow. And the only way that we can have a balance is through the catalyst of love, which we have put aside. We make it the same as money. We make it the same as being beautiful, having a good time all the time, never having to work, never having to suffer, never having to see anything bad, all the negatives. We have to have a balance. Milton, John Milton, who wrote Paradise Lost back in the Puritan period in England, wrote the story of Satan's fall from heaven and how he eventually became the evil spirit in the world. But anyway, what he wrote as a second part was called Paradise Regained. And it's not about crowns and castles and robes and coins. Paradise Regained is in the heart. It is a fluid spirit in the heart. It is love, and it balances the pathos that must be. That's the given. We can't help it. That's existence.
Our guest on the program is Elizabeth Clayton, written so many books that we've talked about on the program. Today it's Hinterland Rose. The book's available at Amazon, the usual places, links on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Talk about what went into writing this. You dig deep into metaphysical aspects of life, exploring layers beyond simply what is visible. That's what makes this book so powerful and profound as we're reading it. Talk about the process. What was this like for you as you put this collection together?
It was a review of my life for the last couple of years because they've been especially difficult. As you know, I am bipolar. I was diagnosed when I was 24, and I was bipolar even as a child. But I have had a difficult life in that regard. But it has offered me many, many beautiful things, and I have learned some wonderful truths, and I'm not complaining. But I have had some physical problems. I have rheumatoid arthritis now, and I had begun to have great pain with my joints. And one night while I was doing my devotions, about 2 or 3 years ago, and probably in prayer or reading my poetry, I had a terrible pain in my right shoulder. And I said, "Oh, this is terrible. I've never had anything like this." And it continued. And my father was a minister, and we had Bible devotion at home, and I was familiar with the word marrow. It was the center of the thing. It was where the life was, the marrow of the bone. I said, "God is delving into my bones. He is telling me something." And so I prayed, and I asked for him to tell me what it was. I don't know what it was. I just know that it soon stopped. Well, that occurred for about, I don't know how long it was, about 2 years. And then it just immediately stopped. And so I wrote poems about the pain, the marrow poems, and what I thought about when I was having the pain.
Yes.
I knew it was the beginning of a long road. Rheumatoid arthritis does hurt. And I'm not trying to be pitiful. I'm just saying I was trying to face the music. And so that happened. And then following on the heels of that, I went into an hallucinatory period where I hallucinated the other 2 years, the rest of the 2 years. I saw figures at night. They never said a word. There was no auditory hallucination, but there were visual hallucinations. They never said anything, but they came in my room, and when I would go over to them to take my paintings away from them or whatever they were doing, they would go away like an apparition or a spirit. Well, that's very hard to live with, Mr. Biden. That's very hard to live with.
You also, the book is in categories. You've got one, medicinal poems. Talk about those and what you went through in writing these.
That was a one-night event. I had a psychiatrist who was not really on his toes, and he let one of my medications go out of date, and I couldn't get it, and it happened to be one that I was dependent on, and I had withdrawal. I had to go in. I went into withdrawal for 4 nights without this medicine, and it was a horrible. If you haven't gone through withdrawal, you don't know how horrible it is, but it's pretty bad. And anyway, that night, I got through the night by writing little verses, or I would have lost what reason I had. And so the medicinal poems are called medicinal because they were medicine for my illness. They helped me get through the night. I got the medicine the next afternoon.
You'll find all of these in Elizabeth's new collection, Hinterland Rose. You'll find it at the usual places. The link on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Reading one of the reviews, they talk about your experiences, the range of darkness that you've experienced in your life, loneliness to anxiety, ultimately to showing the path to oneness with God. What has that journey been like? There's so many people that struggle with loneliness and anxiety, especially in society today, and we're looking for some quick resolution that we're going to feel better.
There aren't any quick resolutions,
and
even if you have God, that's not quick.
How long has that journey been for you?
Not for me. Sometimes the weight of faith is very long.
It's interesting because everybody wants a quick resolution.
I want to pray and have an immediate answer. Well, I don't know who God is. I don't know what God's like. I don't know. I know that God is a presence, is a being, and I have a relationship with this being. But I don't expect him to give me a drop of water if my tongue is hot, because we have to be receptive in a way that he can give. And so a lot of it depends on us. A lot of it depends on, we say he because we've always referred to God as a masculine person. But he has no gender. That's not it. But the thing is, we cannot know God. we have a personal relationship with God, but everybody's relationship with God is different. It is your own. It is your personal relationship with your supreme being. And so I would say this: we have our surmises, and we have hope, and that's all I can say. We really have. We don't know the rest of it. What's wrong with saying we don't know? What's wrong
nothing.
with saying that?
We want the answers for everything, or we need to feel like we know
we're
the
used
answers
to that. We're
everything.
scientists,
Yes.
If we have the answers for everything. But we find that we don't have the answers for everything. We're not happy. And so here we are just lying out on the street about to gasp our last breath because we're so unhappy. We don't have the answer. And we don't have a God either. We did away with him too.
Well, there's so much. This is such a powerful collection, Hinterland Rose by Elizabeth Clayton, our guest on the program. Talk about the one poem now. What was the thought process in putting this poem? Because it's so powerful.
That was meeting the withdrawal head on, as we say, head on.
Yes.
That was when I was having the withdrawal from
how
I felt.
Do we miss out on now? We're unable to live in the now.
No, it was the depth of the trauma of now.
Oh, I see.
It was life is beautiful. I don't know of any. I can't. That's one of the reasons I don't want to die. I know that I'm going to die, but I really don't think I am. I know I am, but I don't want to be where I can't carry all the beauty of this world over to the other side. And I really don't know what's on the other side. And I love the beauty of this world, but it is just as hard. It is just as hard.
You say in the beginning of the book, a note to my readers, this is in the book of beginning of Elizabeth's book, Hinterland Rose. I continue to write as a cathartic measure. Poetry has become darker. Talk about the poetry, how you've evolved in your state now as you're writing.
I don't write about butterflies and birds and flowers quite as much as I used to, and I see conclusion so much more now, Mr. Bratton, because I'm older and I have these physical little tinges that let me know where I am. And so I am more a realist than a romantic than I was as a younger woman. I don't think that I'm any less. I think I am just more realistic. And it is a sobering evaluation of life.
Talk about your background in writing poetry. So many books, well over 20 that you've written, so many people that you've touched in a very positive way throughout your life and the reader's life as well. How did you arrive at this talent? You have such a wonderful way. It's a gift of taking something as simple as a flower, as you've done, and all of a sudden giving us a different impression of that when we see a flower. We look at a rose differently now after reading some of your poetry than we did before. Was this something that came natural to you?
Yes, my parents were, my beginnings were very humble. My parents they were both orphans of the Depression, but they were very able people, and they were very skilled. They were very acutely awarded the fine arts. They were musical, they were artistic, they were everything, plants, nature, all of that. And so I'm a painter. I do sculpt. I like to sew. I love music, especially all kinds of music almost, especially symphonic music. And so I take that and weave that into the world that I have to deal with every day, which is not just all music and flowers and plants and pretty pictures and things like that. And so I use metaphor and simile and symbolism, and I see relationships between things that are not necessarily alike, but they are alike. And I don't know how much time we have, but there is a wonderful little metaphor that I was introduced to by a friend who read my poetry. And he said, have you ever read Stephen Crane poetry? Well, Stephen Crane wrote The Red Badge of Courage and died early. He was tubercular during the Civil War. But anyway, it's a very short poem. Do I have time to relate it?
Please.
All right. There was a man who was walking through a desert place, and he saw a beast sitting on his haunches eating something. And he got up closer, and it was a red something, and it was dripping blood. And he was so astonished, he said, "Sir, what are you doing?" And the beast says, "I am eating." And he says, "Well, what is it?" He says, "I am eating my heart." Well, this just took the man aback, and he walked off and walked around and around, and he couldn't get over it. And he came back to the man, to the beast, and the beast, he says, he was still eating the piece of meat. And the man says, "Well, how is it, sir?" He says, "Bitter, bitter." And the man was just taken aback. He says, "Well, why do you continue to eat this when it's bitter, bitter?" And these words I have said to my classes many times. And when I say them and they understand them, you can hear a pin drop. This is what the beast said. He said, "It is my heart, and I love it." That is the best metaphor for life I have read in a long time.
Yes.
Life is bittersweet at best, but it's the only one we have, and we love it. We want to get into it. We want to enjoy it. We want to eat it, drink it, have it. Did I make my point? Was I screaming?
Yes, you did. I'm picking my pen up now that I dropped and could hear actually it dropped because it's why you were such an excellent teacher and why you're such an excellent and well-respected poet. I got just a minute or so left in the program. For those of us that are readers, Hinterland Rose, we will learn something. It's powerful as we're reading your poetry. As you are putting these poems together and assembling the collection, for example, Hinterland Rose, do you learn something about yourself? Are you still learning something about who you are?
Oh, yes. Life is a wonderful journey. It's full of new adventures every day. People ask me how I've lived this long. You know, bipolar women don't live as long as I do usually. But they say, "How have you lived so long?" And I say, "I start over every day."
I like that. That's something we can all take and implement in our lives.
Yes,
this
it
is
doesn't
the new
have
book.
to be something great. Just start over every day.
Well, yeah, it's that simple, and it works. It works for you. It should work for us as well. What are you working on now? You mentioned you're putting a new collection together.
Yes, it has to do with balance. It has to do with redemption. It has to do with the legend of King Arthur and why the Grail did not work. And it has to do with love, the elixir that keeps us balanced. And I think it's going to be a beautiful piece. It's going to be completed with a little cameo of love lines. And I think it'll be a very pretty book.
I am looking forward to having a chance to talk about that as well. It's so much fun I always learn something to have Elizabeth with us on the program. Elizabeth Clayton, author of Hinterland Rose, one of many books that she's written. You'll find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the usual places. And we'll have a link up on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Elizabeth, it is always a delight to have you with us on the program. Thank you so much for being with us. Looking forward to your next visit. And stay safe, stay well, and thank you once again for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're listening to This Week in America. You'll find us online, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, Executive Producer of This Week in America.